Sure. So we're kind of more leaning towards where is parking now and where is it maybe in the next 10 years, not looking out quite as far as Jim, but we're the folks who operate the parking. So we kind of bring that together and bring it to reality and try to find the best solutions and the best technologies and bring them forward and connect it for the different municipalities that we operate and we work for and partner with. So it's bringing all the things that are talked about today and bring them to fruition and trying to maybe avoid that hype curve. Maybe make that curve a little different. Maybe make it where it's actually upward and peaking and keeps going. So we'll have a little bit of that on one of our slides.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add in too, as operators, we're kind of the bridge between all this great technology that's happening and the customer. So it's our role now, today, to get them more familiar with using technology in their parking experience and helping them, understand the benefits to participating in these systems. Excuse me. So SP Plus operates the City of Atlanta's municipal on-street parking program. We took over that program about 20 months ago, and one of the things that was very apparent was the use of mobile app to make your payment was very low. It was about 4% in the city at that time. So we set about strategic goals of trying to increase adoption, and because of that, we wanted to improve the customer experience. That's always been our forefront there. When somebody uses an app, they get reminders on their phone, so they're less likely to get a citation. They don't have to interact with the equipment on the street, so it's much simpler. And if they've used it one time, then they're very familiar with how it works, so it's a very easy transaction. So a lot of what we did there was our marketing. We made sure that we kind of did an overkill with signage. We made sure that when you were in your vehicle that you could see a sign related to paying by app, so you could complete that transaction in your car. We also did things with couponing and promo codes. And we did a lot of marketing and public outreach, just trying to get people up to speed on what it is. Typically, if you've ever used an app, I think once you've used it one time, you're going to continue to use it over and over. And then along the way, you'll also spread word of mouth and tell folks, hey, this is a great experience, you should try to use an app. So for the City of Atlanta specifically, we had Park Mobile. And so through all of our efforts within the last 24 months, we saw a 330% increase in pay-by-app adoption. And currently today, pay-by-app accounts for 35% of total transactions in the City of Atlanta.
Yeah. And another great byproduct of this is, as this trended up, the opposite way, our need for infrastructure went down. So traditionally, where you may look at 8 spaces to have a pay station, a kiosk, whatever you want to call it, we're pushing 20 plus spaces now. So we're seeing a less infrastructure on the street. And in the places we tested that, there's been no complaints. In fact, I'd say we're going to push that adoption up over 50%, hopefully this year, where people are paying by app. And we're going to kind of get on the next slide into how we're going to do that.
So we're excited for the City of Atlanta program to be the first in the United States to offer a full system where you're able to pay with multiple apps. City of Atlanta is a place where we get 50 million unique visitors a year. And our goal is to have folks who interact with our program to pay. I don't care if it's with your cash or wallet or vehicle or app. I just want you to pay. Compliance is great for us. We don't want to issue citations and have potential for a negative customer experience when somebody comes to visit our great city. So we've worked to build a system in the last 20 months that would allow us to integrate multiple apps. And these are just a few of the ones that are being currently considered. And we've done a mock-up here of what a sign would look like. So where they would all share the same zone. All these systems would be integrated into our back office, so we would be able to enforce across it. But we'd also be able to have a single source warehouse for all the data. And that'll help us run analytic programs and help determine the direction of the parking program. So as we get further down the road with this, there's a lot of conversation about tiered pricing and dynamic rates. Having that data and having this robust back office will allow us to start having those conversations with the city stakeholders and our customers.
And one of the cool things that will happen is as all that data comes together, if we're going to do dynamic pricing or we're going to change rates, we're going to have a one push. So if the rate changes, it's going to change across all the aggregators, anybody who is involved in the system, and it'll happen live. So we're not going to be trying to get everybody involved, trying to change their rates or trying to do anything. We're bringing it all into one source. So it's it's going to be pretty exciting, and we're going to have a few other cities that we're going to be working with on this across. When we kind of showed that map, one of the big things is if you took all those circles and you draw lines between all of them, we try to connect all of our operations so we bring the best across the United States and we can prove things out, because you have to bring that to stakeholders. One of the biggest things we like is data. If we can take the data and prove out the system, it's pretty hard to kind of go against, and then we can bring it to other places.
Yeah, just to point out in this scenario too, I mean, our big focus here is the customer's experience. So if you come from a city where Passport may be the app that you have, I'd like if you visited Atlanta to see that app on that sign and then pay with what you're comfortable with versus having to download the app that we say that you guys should use. When it comes to the operation side of it and the asset management part of it, by having all these folks engage the system, we're able to hold them a little bit more accountable to the customer's needs. If we just had Park Mobile as the only app that was available to be used, Park Mobile has a monopoly on that, and they don't really have an incentive to create things within their app that better serve the customer, provide a better pricing model. By having all 4 of these apps in place, now they're each having to compete for their own customers. So what we're hoping is that it's going to spur development and make them get really creative with how they keep their customers or how they attract new customers.
Yeah, and how they price it, right? So how much the end user has to pay, because traditionally right now it's all one, any city you go to has an app to pay. So now if you're going to have 4 or 5, how much are you going to charge the customer? How are you going to drive that business for your unique visitors in Atlanta or any other place?
So when looking at smart parking and smart cities, we recently had a smart city event where we did an unofficial poll of customers or visitors, and we asked them to rank, out of the things that kind of come with a smart parking system, what was most valuable and what would be most useful to them. A lot of people, as you can see from the graph there, were very interested in guidance to available spaces, and so we certainly recognize that. And as Jim pointed out, through that kind of technology, there's a benefit to the city as well in helping to reduce congestion, improve the customer experience, help businesses by helping customers find spaces that are close to their destination, and in the end have a positive effect on the environment and pollution. We also look at the way that customers feel about this technology, and we're trying to find ways that encourage them to participate with it, because we also look at this as a way to get them to engage the smart city landscape. So when we talk about smart cities and all the interesting things that come with lighting and infrastructure, and as parking relates to it, parking is really a great point of access for folks who are visiting a downtown to engage that system, especially if it's through a technology that they're already used to using.
So what we're seeing is through connecting the vehicles and the vehicle becoming the identifier through the plate. And that's one of the most important things from an enforcement compliancy standpoint. And it's important, we are the folks that do write those parking tickets in a lot of those cities, but a lot of it comes for public safety, and then the other part is for compliancy. So it's not to be a punitive system, but it's to help create that turnover and keep things moving forward. And one of the interesting things is when we talk about these apps, and we met recently with the CEO at Pay by Phone, is starting to push them, to Jason's point, to do other things. And they are looking at that, like how are they going to use that app for people to pay for gas or to get coffee in the morning? So it becomes more than just to pay for parking, and it starts to push their whole system. And it hooks, one of the interesting things is Volkswagen said this is give them more touch points with their customers than they would have had when they just sell a car and then off they go.
Yeah, and I think this also illustrates, Volkswagen, Visa, BMW, there's some pretty big players in their different industries, and how they're seeing that there is this partnership to be had with the parking system and how they're engaging these vendors that we utilize to participate. So for many years now, people have talked about smart parking and smart cities, and Bob and I kind of have equated that conversation to, well, when is a program a smart program? And what we think is the old way of interacting with the parking system is a passive kind of involvement. That's a lot of what Jim's points there were things that weren't interactive. They would be put a coin in the meter and walk away. What we think the real benefit to a smart parking program within a smart city is that it allows the customer to interact further, but it also allows our city stakeholders to interact with the customers, and it can also come out to allow local businesses to engage customers more. And we feel like at a certain point, the parking transaction is really going to become a background transaction when things happen automatically, or they're through the vehicle, or your app is geofenced and it automatically bills you for the parking. The value of the parking system is going to be continuing on with that customer's destination once they leave that vehicle. So helping them get to where they're going with guidance, or giving them some marketing information about maybe a restaurant there that they could engage with, who will validate their parking, things like that. So really, as our industry shifts, we're focused on how we can really tailor that customer's experience and provide a lot more value.